Hi there, my name is Julie Fei-Fan Balzer here for Sakura of America on the set of Scrapbook Soup TV. And today I'm going to show you all the kinds of white pens that Sakura has to offer. So if you take a peek here at my cheat sheet, I have both a glossy piece of cardstock and a plain piece of cardstock, and I've used each of these pens and I'm going to show you exactly how they work. So first up is the Permapaque. And Permapaque is a paint marker that you don't have to shake or anything like that, and it doesn't have any odor. And if you open one side, you'll see that there's a nice bullet tip there. And if you open the other side, you'll see that it's a chisel tip. So the chisel tip looks a little something like that, and the bullet tip has a much thinner line, as you can see. I like the sort of chalky effect that it gives. Next up, we have the Pentouch, which again, you can see comes in two different sizes. And it is a paint marker that, much like a traditional paint marker, you need to shake it. And you can hear that metallic ball in there rolling around, making sure that that paint is nice and mixed. When you first get it, the tip is going to be clear, and you'll need to depress it several times. This is also a way to help release the pressure that builds up in there, okay? And once it's depressed several times, you can see how you can easily create a line with it. You do want to shake it every single time. You don't necessarily need to depress it every single time. And then the smaller one gives a much smaller line. Now, next, we're going to talk about the Souffle Pen. And actually, I want to show you these three pens at the same time for just a moment, because I think it can get a little bit confusing. These are three very different pens that do three very different things. They are all gel pens, and you can see by the caps that they're slightly different. So the Glaze Pen is the shiniest of all, okay? The classic Jelly Roll is sort of midway shiny. And then the Souffle is a nice matte cap. And the caps give you a hint to exactly what the ink is inside the pen. So let me show you what I mean. Glaze is always going to be a glossy, shiny, raised surface. And at first it's gonna look like maybe there's nothing coming out. That's because it takes a moment for it to show up. And actually the Souffle Pen is gonna be the same way. There is a little glue ball on here when you first get this pen, which you simply remove and discard. And again, at first you're gonna think, there's no ink in this pen, but again, it will come up after a moment as it dries. And then finally, the classic Jelly Roll, you'll see right away, you see that bright white line. All of these are nice, thin, controlled lines. And as they dry, you can see that they're beginning to come up. And we'll come back and visit these when they're completely dry. So next up, I want to talk about two different things. This is the Cray-Pas Oil Pastel. You probably use these in art class or somewhere else, and these are fantastic because they're so versatile. Right over any kind of rough surface, really opaque, and of course, oil pastels can be smeared with your fingers for all sorts of cool effects, and you can mix them and do all sorts of stuff. Solid markers, and again, this has a little cap inside that you'll just discard, and it just screws from the bottom like this when you want more. There's even arrows right here that show you exactly how to do that. This one does much the same thing as the oil pastel, and again, you can smear it. However, when it dries, it's completely permanent forever and ever and ever, okay? And it's great. I use it all the time in my art journal for that really nice kick, as opposed to an oil pastel, which really never fixes. Next up, we're going to talk about the Pentouch Calligrapher. So you'll recall that we originally talked about the Pentouch. You had to shake, shake, shake it, right? So this is the same thing, except the Calligrapher, as the name indicates, and you can see right here, has that nice chisel tip. And you can see that it gives you a nice strong line. And of course, if you turn the pen the other way, which is how you're going to be able to do some calligraphic things. It also comes in multiple sizes, and you can also depress the nib when you want to release the pressure in the chamber. So again, just push it in to make sure that everything is okay. So that's our range of absolutely fabulous and fantastic white pens, markers, and tools. And now that we've dried a little, I just want to revisit for you the glaze, the souffle, and the classic Jelly Roll. You can see how nice and white opaque. So now that I've shown you all those, let me show you why I need to have all of these tools so that I can create a variety of effects. If you look at my scrapbook page here, you'll see that it sort of looks, I would say, like night sky. There's some soft, there's some hard lines, there's thick, there's thin, there's different levels of opacity. And that's what makes that doodle so interesting. It's not just one thing. It sort of blends with the background, it pulls around. I love it. And I'm excited to show you how easy it is to use a variety of tools to get this look. So let me just bring this out and bring in my paper. Now I just have some deli paper down to protect the table because most of these pens are completely permanent. So you want to make sure that you do that. So I'm going to start off by creating what I consider a shadow drawing. So I'm just taking the chisel end of my Permapaque and I'm going to do, this is really hard drawing, you guys, just really simply a really loose drawing. And the thing that I like about using the Permapaque here first is that it's going to create a really soft shadowy look that I can build on top of. So I can make mistakes, it's not too bold, but it's going to create a fabulous base for what I want to do later. So once I have my base there, I'm going to start to add in some details. And I want this to be permanent, so I could use either the oil pastel or the solid marker, but because I want it to be permanent, I'm going to go ahead and use that solid marker. And what I'm going to do is I am simply going to run around here, and you can see it gives that nice cranny look. And then I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to smear it. And this is what gives it that nice, soft, sort of galaxy-ish look that I think is really, really nice and pretty. Okay, and I would just add some more of that. And remember that you can keep going back. So let's say we want to add in some leaves now here. I'm just going to go ahead and draw some cute little leaves coming everywhere. And then maybe I want to have my solid marker come in here and smear that out just to color it. Don't think of things as being really precious. Have fun, experiment, and remember, you always want to have a wide variety of texture, depth of color, opacity, all that kind of stuff. So next up, I think I'm going to take my pen touch. Why not take the wider one? And then let's just go right ahead and make this line a little bit darker. But notice that I'm not exactly tracing what I had before. Again, variety creates interest. And then I'm simply going to add some marks. A lot of times with doodling, it's not about being able to draw beautiful, perfect pictures. It's not really illustration. It's more about doing something over and over and over again, and again, making the eye keep moving, creating things that are interesting to look at. So it's not like I have to be a super skilled doodler in order to do this. It's just that I'm doing the same thing a million times. So notice how the bullet tip on this is perfect for adding that perfect dot. I love my pen touch pens for adding dots big and small, because again, that little round tip completely and perfectly adds it. Now I would of course continue on doing this to all the flowers and treating them, but we're just gonna keep moving. So next, to add some texture, I'm gonna take the jelly roll, and I was able to pick it from my group of pens, again, simply by looking at the cap. And if you want, you can also see, of course, the name of the pen is written down the barrel as well, but the caps make it really easy to choose. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna scribble. Now look at this different and interesting texture I'm getting. It's such a thin line when you compare it to the thickness around it, so immediately I think the eye becomes interested in what's happening. There's that nice shadow back there, and now we're adding some more, which is really cool. But you know, remember how I mentioned that the Souffle pen is dimensional ink? And well, come on, that's just cool. So I want to go next and grab my Souffle ink with my matte cap, and I want to create some little dimensional dots. Really cool and fun, because that again is going to add another layer of visual texture to everything that I'm doing here. So we're just gonna keep adding. And again, notice that I'm repeating that rule that I said before. I'm not doing anything hard. I'm just repeating it over and over and over again, okay? Now, let's say that you wanna add even more interest, even more texture. You wanna go even more. Well, one of the things that I think is fun is go back to a tool you've used, but in a different tip width. So we've already used the Pen Touch pen in the wider size. Let's go ahead now and use it in the smaller size, okay? So how about if we attack these leaves and just give them a little bit of interest, right like that. Maybe give it a little scribble and some dots. But again, one pen is not enough interest. So actually, now, why don't we go ahead and grab the Glaze Pen, and we're gonna go ahead and add some scribbling there. So now I'm gonna have some leaves that have two kinds of texture as soon as that pen dries. And you can add dots and dashes and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So if we look back at the finished layout, I think what you'll see now is that wide variety of tools that I've used here that have different levels of opacity, that have different tip sizes, that make a different mark. Some of it is raised ink, some of it is flat, some of it is shiny, some of it is matte, is what really makes this doodle come alive. So I love my Sakura pens and markers. I hope that you do too, and I hope you give all of the Sakura white products a try.